Hi, everybody. My name is Scott Mielis. My pronouns are he, him, his. I work for Bank of America. I've been there since 2015. I'm very passionate about the topic that we're talking about today. And a few of us are going to be sharing our stories, talking a little bit about allyship and how important it is to all of us and what you and your organizations can do to be better allies and build a more inclusive environment. Always excited to partner with Out and Equal, an incredible organization that you should always think about, if you need help with some of your training or policies, a great partnership. They host great conferences, always a great resource. So let's get started here today. So session overview, we really talk about how allies are so critical. And when you hear about the LGBTQ community, you often hear the word allies. And today we're just going to be talking about what that means. What does it mean to those of us who are in this community, and what you and your organizations can do? Everybody's along a journey. We don't expect perfection, and we want to be really clear when we're setting that up front. We all make mistakes. This is a session I want you to feel. If you have questions, anything that's respectfully asked, we really don't mind. So please feel free. We're always happy to connect, always happy to reach out. But really, when we're talking about today, we just want to make sure that people understand the need for equality, fairness, and acceptance, often help build bridges where they didn't exist for so many of us. Not just our community, but we really use that word, but so many others when we're talking about different people from different countries or skin colors or religions. We need to be standing up for everyone. But what we're talking about today is specific to the LGBTQ community. So what we're really going to do is just go over some of the key basic terms. What does it mean to be an ally? How can you be an ally? And once we build that base concept, we're really going to be talking about our own journey as a company and our own framework. How did we get to where we are today with our allyship? We have over 32,000 members of our ally and LGBTQ plus network, what we call LGBT plus network, which has been incredible. We've really seen an explosion in the growth of how many people that don't identify as out or part of the LGBT community who are there just to support and make sure they're also standing with us. And then we'll be talking really, what can your organization do more in depth? And hopefully you can just assess where is your organization in this process, and then really understand what specific steps. You're not going to be able to put everything in place. I know many of you are along a spectrum of where you are in your own journey, but maybe after this, if you look at the whole picture and everything you want to change and move, it can be overwhelming. We really always encourage you to focus on maybe your top 3 things and focus on those. So next slide, Rebecca. And what we're going to talk about is, what does it mean to be an ally? I think a lot of people assume that you have to be out there in, protesting, or it's how you interact with people. You have to be a complete champion for the cause. That's not really what we're talking about. It's just someone who supports, civil rights and gender equality, and just social movements. You stand against homophobia, biphobia, or transphobia. And strive to be more inclusive. It's not expected that you're perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Go ahead and move on from those. As an ally, we don't expect you to be perfect, though. You're not someone with ready-made answers. You don't have to be an expert. You just have to be somebody who cares. And really, to kick this story, what I'd like to start off with is a great friend and colleague, Jay Norris, who is going to talk about his own journey, his own story, and what it means to be part of an inclusive organization. Jay?
Great. Thank you, Scott. And I'd like to start by just saying thanks to everyone for allowing me to be here and be in front of the group today. I'm honored. More importantly, I'd like to thank you all for being here, whether it's to learn or to support. Thanks for showing up. I think that's the first step in being a great ally. As Scott mentioned, my name is Jay Norris. I live in Charlotte. Yes.
I am so sorry. The one thing that I was supposed to do to start kicking off, I want everyone to know from an accessibility standpoint, if you look towards the bottom of your screen, there is a live transcript, and that will allow you to just show some of the highlights or the full transcript if you click on that and need access to that. Also, if you have any questions for us, please post those in the chat. We will be monitoring that so we can get your questions. That's the easiest and the best way to ask. Thank you. Sorry, Jay.
No, no worries, Scott. Thanks for the technical reminders. I was concerned it was a technology issue on my side, so relieved that it's not. So again, Jay Norris, I'm a managing director with Bank of America in our global transaction services business. I've been with the bank for 21 years this summer, based in Charlotte, North Carolina. And thought I'd share a little bit about not really my story, but my family's story. So I myself do not personally identify as part of the LGBTQ plus community, but I do have a family member who does. And so I'll start and just tell you a little bit about the story and why today's session and the work that all of you are a part of and the learning that you're doing is important for me and for others that are in the community. I have 3 young children. My wife and I have 3 young children. Our oldest is 11 years old. Her name is Mary. Mary was identified as male at birth, and really at around age 5 or 6, started to, in certain ways, tell us that that she may be different. And every journey is different, as Scott mentioned. And for us, it took a period for her to get that message over to us, and she started to wear some of her little sister's dress up clothing around the house, so Disney princess, and asked us to get some that were her size, and we did. And we also got other dress up gear that was traditionally male, so if you will, pirate or what have you, and all of that stayed in the packaging. And she really enjoyed the Disney princess dresses for about a month before coming to us and saying, "Thank you for doing that, but I don't like the frills, and this stuff is itchy, and I want some real girl clothes." And at that point, for me and for my wife, we realized maybe there was something more that she was trying to tell us. And it did initially cause some anxiety and fear for us. And what I would say is, further to Scott's point, is we are all learning and growing, and we don't always all get it right. That's part of the journey. While we didn't, we probably made some mistakes along the way. What we did decide early on is that we would let our daughter guide us, that we would love and support her, and that we would follow her, whatever that meant and wherever that took us. And so we got the girl clothings. We tried to support her as she started to wear that, not only inside the house, but outside of the house, and make her feel comfortable and create a space where she could feel like she is her true self and who she is, and really decided early on that that was the only approach. And really, that was the approach that we would take with all of our kids, regardless of their decisions, is love and support, and let that be the lead. And so over time, she did get more comfortable and did come to us and ask us to do things like change pronouns and use daughter, which we did. It took an adjustment, as you might imagine, but we honored that, respected that, and have done that. We also, over time, have updated her name and now use Mary versus the given name at birth. And so the story really here is, we have a transgender daughter, identified male at birth, but what I can tell you is, in every way, in her heart and in her mind and in her soul, is truly a female. And I'm here today to share that story in hopes that that I can educate others, answer questions that you may have, share our experience as a form of awareness. You probably, and if there are parents out there, might relate to similar circumstances where we never imagined this was part of our journey and our path. But here we are, and we fully support it. And in every way, we are proud of her and want to do the best and what's right for her. And so part of our journey has been not only becoming an increasing ally, but also an advocate for the community. And so that's why it's important for me and for our family to show up to events like this, to share, again, our story and the journey that we've been on, in hopes that it resonates with others, and to really help others understand that this is not a choice, and that we need to create a safe space for everyone to be who they are. And that's the way that we're going to all be our best selves. And so I will stop there and turn it back over to the rest of the team. I'm going to introduce Yamlana, and Yam is going to take us through some other materials, but I will stay on and do encourage any questions and happy to answer those. And so thank you again for being here. Thank you for listening to the story. And Yam, I am proud to introduce you and pass over to you now.
There is one more point that I wanted you to talk about, Jay, and that's
Absolutely, Scott.
when I was the global lead of our transgender framework, one of the things that I started reaching out to you to talk about your own story. And we've since expanded our support for our employees, not just for transgender employees, but really looking at something we'll talk about is gender diversity. Let me share sorry, I was trying not to distract, but let me start my video. When we're talking about gender diversity, we'll talk about what it means to be gender expansive or non-binary, but we also supported parents now. So we've reached and expanded our support. So we have one-on-one HR support, not only for our transgender and gender diverse teammates, but really how are we supporting this across the education of their teammates, their managers, their HR and line of business executives, and doing the same for parents. And I know you're now part of that email distribution group and that group that connects. What does it mean to you that your company supports, and what support have you found within Bank of America?
Great question, Scott. I'm glad you mentioned it. I think it's an important part of the story and one I wanted to talk about here today. So back when we were first learning this, as our daughter told us who she really was, there were two main organizations that helped us with the journey. One of those is PFLAG, so Parents, Family, Friends of the Community, and the other was really Bank of America. So again, I've worked for the bank for over 20 years. I'm fortunate that we have a great organization that supports all of our employees, but is also always looking to expand those benefits, expand that support. And so at the beginning of our journey, I joined all of the LGBTQ events that I could, really just to feel like I was surrounded by other supportive associates and individuals. And that was at a point where I wasn't ready to tell more about our story yet. I just needed that comfort and knowing that those around me did understand and were there. And then what's been great to see is along the way, the bank has really looked to ways to, again, expand that support, whether it's from the benefits that we provide, and we're thankful for our HR partners and our life event services, as well as the community, so that people do feel like they can bring them whole selves to work and share their own stories. And as Scott can vouch, I've gone from this initial point that I describe of being scared and all of the concern and not knowing what to do and where to go and how to handle it, to now being part of that community, that when we have a new parent or caregiver at the bank who might be experiencing what I did, 4, 5, 6 years ago, early in their journey, I can relate to that and hopefully provide some support for them and tell them about the path and what helped us, and be really an ear and an advocate and an ally for them. So the bank has continued to look at and work on ways that we can educate others and expand our support overall. So Scott, hopefully that answered your question, but I'm very grateful for you and the rest of the team for all the things that we've done. And it is an ongoing effort. There is no end to this. And so I'm glad to be a part of it, but thankful for everyone who's gotten us where we are and where we continue to go towards.
Now, we'll talk a little bit more, but you've taken your own journey to mentor and help other people for a really difficult time. And I know they appreciate it.
Thank you.
And now we're going to go over to Yam. She's going to give us pieces of an educational story, really regarding what are allies, and really explain it a little bit more in depth. So Yamlana, my apologies.
No, it's okay. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Jay, for sharing your story. I've heard it multiple times, and I'm still so touched, like just hearing about it. So I'm glad you were able to share it with this group. So like Scott said, my name is Yamlana Santiago. My pronouns are she, her, and hers. I'm a project manager here in Bank of America. I'm a transgender woman, and I transitioned while working for the company. And I'll tell you along the way during this presentation about my story. So I want to thank everyone for attending. I'm so excited to talk to you guys about it. If we can move to the next slide. So this is just to show some statistic. 50% of transgender people under the age of 26 say that they try to kill themselves, and 30% say they've done it within the past year. That's a huge number. I'm lucky enough that my family is very supportive and working for a company that really support my authentic self. 1 out of 5 LGBTQ plus people has experienced a hate crime or incident because of their sexual orientation and or gender identity in the last year. We can talk about the workplace. You can see in the bottom, 10% of transgender people who have experienced verbal abuse and 6% who experience physical assault at work. This is why it's important that company have policy protecting transgender associates. I came out to our company when I knew we had policy in place. I started 23 years ago at the bank, and we didn't have anything about trans associates back then. So the impact on having these type of programs really means a lot to me. On the last bullet, 73% of closeted LGBTQ plus workers are more likely to leave their jobs within 3 years versus those who are out of work. And I've heard of this. I've also experienced this. Associates who are out at work tends to be more productive, happier for living their truth, and stay within the company. You know, associate retention is really important for any company. So having a great program for the LGBTQ plus community really allows us to be who we are. We can move on to the next slide. So some key concept, I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with these. I'll go through some of them. Birth assigned sex. This is when the doctor says it's a boy or it's a girl. My assigned sex was male. That still reflects on my birth certificate. I was born in Manila, Philippines, and unfortunately I can't change it because of their law. I actually have a very interesting story about my birth sex in my legal document. I talked about this recently during one of our courageous conversations on Transgender Day of Remembrance. I'm a military wife. My husband is in the Navy. After we got married, I was excited to get my military ID since I can go to the commissary and the exchange. So my husband and I went to the place where they issued the ID. I brought all my documents, and this area was really small. And some people don't think about this, but you know, in my documents, I have to bring my birth certificate. And like I said, I was born in Manila, Philippines. I can't change my birth certificate information, which means my birth name, which is really masculine, and my gender at birth is showing. The person who was processing my paperwork literally yelled out, "Wait, this is your birth certificate? It shows here the name of beep beep, and it shows male." I was so embarrassed since other people can hear it, and since it was a small place, you know, I had to politely say, "Yes, you can look at the other legal documents to follow, and you'll understand." You don't have to say it out loud. It was very uncomfortable, but he later apologized for being so loud. It's just one of those constant struggle I have presenting legal documents, having my birth assigned sex. Next is sexual orientation. This is regarding your attraction and relationship. Then we have gender identity, personal sense of being male, female. So this is internal compared to gender expression, you know, how one expresses their gender outward. When I was younger, my gender identity has always been female. Because of society's expectation, including corporate policy a long time ago, my gender expression was male. I wore men's clothes, but I identify as a woman. At some point, I actually have two set of clothes. So one for work as a male, and then one for out of work as a female. When I finally transitioned, I was happy to get rid of all my men's clothes. So my identity and my expression are the same, but that's not always the case for everyone. So transgender, like I said, I'm a transgender woman, a term for people whose gender identity or expression does not match the gender they were assigned at birth. And I'm sure this word is a lot more known now, since famous people coming out, a movie was about transgender topic. So I'm very happy that people are more exposed to this term and trying to understand it. We still have a long way to go, but the progress is there. Cisgender, and this is still somewhat new to someone of the non-LGBT community. This is someone whose gender identity matches the gender they were assigned at birth. I would just assume that most of these people on this call are cisgender. And we have transition, process transgender people go through to become comfortable in their own gender. You heard me earlier about me transitioning within the company. Some transition are faster than others. Some prefer their transition to include medical surgery, and some don't. But that doesn't make their transition less significant. It took a while for my journey, and some are still constantly transitioning. So we have gender diverse, the term means non-gender specific. And then we have gender non-binary, an umbrella term for all who don't identify as just male or female all the time. And I'm still learning a lot about this gender diverse and gender non-binary. I have a friend who identified as gender non-binary and using the pronouns them or they, and I still slip a lot. So I'm still trying to get used to it. So just like everyone else, no one is perfect. And I might be speaking in a lot of events, but I also still make mistakes. So if we can move over to the next slide. So let's get educated. Here are some common questions. I won't go through all of them, but I do want to highlight some of the very commonly asked to me personally. How do I respectfully address people without offending them? I think the intention of your question and how you address them is the key. If your intention is without malice and really you're just trying to be educated, I don't think anyone will be offended. We are all constantly learning. So if you do make a mistake and, if you do make a mistake accidentally, that you did something to offend someone, apologize and move on. Like I said, I'm still personally trying to learn things and constantly evolving from what I learned. So just be open about it. What are some of the LGBTQ organizations? Like, Jay said, there's PFLAG that, helped him with his daughter. We have GLSEN, Trevor Project, and we have the Out and Equal Workplace Advocate, which is who we have the honor of right now presenting. We as a company here at the bank, we have plenty of resources available. For those who don't or want to expand on their learning, these organizations are amazing to learn from and, get involved. How to engage and learn from others. Ask questions and seek answers. Like I stated, I'm still learning. We actually took a quiz at work to test your personality, and mine is a questionnaire. So I'm really all about asking questions. Ask people what issues are more important to them. We all have different passions in life, at work, our everyday thinking. So asking people what's important to them is a great way to have great connection. I'm a trans woman, so obviously any trans issues are most important to me. You can go to the next slide, please. So speak up. This is really important for me and for all the allies. Words are powerful and can be hurtful. We encourage everyone to speak up if they do hear something like slur. Like, here's an example here is, "That's so gay." And I'm very guilty of this before, talking to my gay friends, trying to be funny and saying that. What I realize is me saying that and other people hearing it makes them think it's okay to say it. So I've stopped using that phrase, and I do hear my friends, gay or not gay, say that. So I'm always speaking up and saying to them that the term is offensive and let's not keep saying that. Another slur referred me as a he, she, or it, or using just an incorrect pronoun. So on these, just create educational moment, try to diffuse a situation and offer support. Your support goes a long way. And just by saying this phrase, if you ever want to talk more about, the topic that they're passionate about, it really helps us be more comfortable. So let's go to the next slide. I do want to remind everyone, if you guys can post questions while we're presenting. So it's in the Q&A panel at the top. So we'll go through it. If it's regarding what I'm talking about, someone will ask me that. So, but feel free to utilize that box to ask questions. So next one is be honest. You can be confused about the right language terms. Like I said, I still make mistakes. So it's just a matter of always trying to learn. What can you do? Don't out people. But you can also be open and honest when situation presents itself. Some of these examples are really great. My son and his boyfriend attended a baseball game with us. I'm attending my aunt's wedding this weekend. She's marrying her girlfriend of 5 years. Some of these examples are somewhat obvious, right? You're telling someone about your gay son or your lesbian aunt. But there's also time that you don't out people. And this really hits home with me. As an out trans woman, sometimes I can be in a vulnerable position. I've been outed a lot of times while in public, and I've experienced some very uncomfortable situations. Obviously I'm talking on this panel and letting you know I'm a trans woman, but if you see me in public with your friends, I don't think you should tell them like, hey, that lady over there is trans. I've had that happen to me and end up in name calling or making a scene, since you don't know how other people will react, and just some are closed-minded. Being outed as trans is really different. Some people take it as me being deceitful, like I'm fooling them since they thought I'm a genetic woman, and some feel betrayed. Ask what you can do. Don't out anyone, but you can share what you've learned, like terms to use. Start using more inclusive language like partner or spouse, and don't be afraid of making people uncomfortable just by mentioning LGBTQ plus terms or topics. Now, another step is support equality. There's a lot of ways you can support equality without being too political or not wanting to offend others. Don't assume that LGBTQ plus topics make people uncomfortable or even taboo. Having this conversation is very important, and you might find a common ground with someone by just having this talk. You can be an ally, and you can progress from an ally to an advocate. Express your opinion and do it with courage. Vote, volunteer, and even start joining Pride Parade. I know Pride was pretty much canceled this year, but when it's back, I encourage everyone to join. Can you go to the next slide, please? Come out. So, not only the LGBTQ plus people can come out. If you're an ally, you can also come out. On these scenarios, what if people think you're gay? Well, first, I don't think that's a big deal, but that's just me, since before I came out as trans, I came out as gay. So I actually came out twice to my friends and family. But if you're out as an ally, let people know why you are. Let them know you support our rights. Share your personal story on why you're so passionate about it. Your story is what people will remember. Reach out to your company's LGBTQ plus network if you have it. If you don't, why not start one? So now I'll turn it back over to Scott. Any additional things that I discussed, Scott, including you coming out?
Sure. And thank you very much. It's really been a true pleasure to get to know you over the years. One of the things I'm not really going to do a deep dive in today, but I was one of those men who didn't really care. I'm a gay man, but going through my own life, I was raised in a very Pentecostal background, and the way that you're raised and the religious beliefs that I had, these people were evil. Somebody that's part of this community, they weren't shown compassion, they were rejected. And the way that people talked about them, and you grow up with that belief and the shame and the weight and the pain that you carry is unimaginable. And I just remember so many nights crying in my youth, asking for this to be taken from me, because I looked at this as disgusting and it needed to be removed. I even tried to go to a very religious college. I thought, if I live this perfect life and if this will be taken from me. And I remember telling my parents, I couldn't even say that I was bi. The first time I just said that I was gay. And even that, I'm sorry, reverse that. I couldn't say that I was gay. I told them I was bi. And my mom's reaction was like, I knew Satan would do this to you. And they immediately put me into Exodus Ministries, which is the conversion therapy and ex-gay, but I wanted to be, and I beat myself up, and you feel so worthless. And when I went back to the school, people knew that I was struggling with something. And when I told one of my roommates, he had a really hard time with it. Not intentionally, he told somebody that he knew, but she told people and it started to get out. And people got angry with me. And the reaction is people don't come to you showing you kindness or compassion. I went to my mailbox and didn't know that had gotten out. And there were packed full of letters telling me that I was worthless or an abomination, that I should no longer be at the school. And you're already struggling and you're in pain, you're fighting with your parents. And to have that, it just becomes this overwhelming sense of hopelessness. I remember my mom asking me after one of my meetings, for the conversion therapy, asking me, how did it go? How are you feeling? And I remember sitting there like, I have been watching these people for months now. Some of these people are in the group for 15, 20 years. They hate themselves. They're no more confident. They beat themselves up. What if this is who I am, Mom? And I remember her saying that, you'll never be around us again. And my sister in the background, my niece was born the year before. She was kind of like my daughter, especially with everything that I was going through. She was really the only human being that loved me. And my sister was like, you'll never be around her again. And I remember just laying down. I went outside in the middle of the soccer field. It was a freezing day. It was raining. And I just begged God to kill me that night. And I completely snapped. I ended up in a mental hospital, had to come home because I could no longer be at school because of the emotion and the pain. And when I did, it was just a constant fight. And the hard thing is my parents are such loving human beings, but they had the same belief that I did. And I had that belief that I was evil and horrible. And so it's hard to be angry, but you are, when people don't see that you're a human being or think that what they're doing or saying could cause you pain when they're telling you how worthless you are. We ended up fighting. I moved my church, I told my youth pastor because I knew something was going on, knew that I was depressed, wanted to see how they could help. And when I told them what I was struggling with, they instantly reacted. And I begged them not to tell because I knew my parents had already said, don't you speak to anybody about this. We're so ashamed of you. And then my youth pastor told everybody at church and the phones started ringing off the hook with people, judging me or telling me to get away from their children. And my mom was like, you need to come to church this Sunday. And for me, that was the last place that I wanted to go. For me, that was where the most pain was for me. And two people walked up to me that day. One said, don't ever go near my children. The other said, don't ever sit near us in church. And I walked out of that building just sobbing. And my mom ran after me and said, get back in there. And I was like, I can't. I ended up leaving the house. Very naive kid. I ended up moving to Chicago with $1,000 and 2 suitcases. And you're so in pain, and everybody's just telling you how hated. Nobody comes up and tells you you're okay. No one says that you're going to be loved. And I remember one day walking around just begging strangers, like, hey, here we all are in so much pain. Are you okay? And you just want anyone to show you compassion. And I really started studying the human race. And I got so angry at how have we treated each other? How many times have we said this group is inferior, this group is less than? We've never gotten it right. But when you're in that much pain, it's hard to see. And I was carjacked maybe 10 years later. So from 1996 to 2006, I wasn't allowed to speak to my parents or tell them about my life. After the carjacking, I remember my dad calling and saying, oh my gosh, we could have lost you. Can you ever forgive us? It didn't change or perfect. It was still so much awkwardness for another 5 years. And when you're this hurting and you're broken, I often tell people in our community, we're not always good to each other. As we're asking each other for respect, or for respect from other people, we need to be doing the same for each other because we're all hurting. I went through this, things slightly changed. I remember fighting for civil rights in 2014 when they tried to pass an anti-discrimination law in Charlotte. And so many people came out really saying, so angry, if we show these people kindness and compassion, we can't be free. And you get so angry watching that. Right after that, I tried to kill myself in 2014. You have this impossible weight and this burden that you carry for so long. And I remember coming out of that, and it's the first time in my life in the mental hospital, I realized how many people were reaching out for me. Here I was with people that were truly alone. And these people there are people that truly loved me. And I started thinking, how did I get this so wrong? This is who I was when I entered Bank of America in 2015. And when we're fighting for civil rights, the T got added. So it made it harder for my rights to pass. And so I was probably like, why do we really care? But I wasn't angry. But finding a place that I felt respected, that I could talk about my partner, that we've been together now, right after the suicide attempt, 3 days after I started in Bank of America in April 2015, I met my current boyfriend, and we've been together for 5.5 years. We built a home together, and I started being able to live my authentic self. And all of this hate and the rage that I had for myself or was absorbing, it finally gave me this freedom to understand I have always been deserving of love and kindness, like all of us have. And I'm sure everybody on this call, because of your gender or your skin color or your nationality or your religion, somebody has looked down on you and told you that you're worthless or not meaning or you're inferior. That belief has never been true. And we really need to get to a point of understanding that we are one human race. And in 2017, I was able to expand our framework globally for transgender support. And it really gave me so much meaning and value. And meeting all of these human beings like Jay and Yamlana and hearing their stories, that their pain matched mine. And when you listen to everybody and you listen to their stories and you start to understand why people are hurting and broken, really being part of Bank of America, I have so much loyalty to a company that for the first time has let me be who I am. And just even in my skill set and this belief, again, I never thought of a future, but really being here at this company has given me hope. And that's what I really want to talk about next, is how do you make sure that your corporation is really ready, not just from the perspective of kindness and compassion, but also there's business reasons. And so if we can go to the next slide, let's really talk about what are the thoughts, and have you established goals? It's not enough just to say we want to be good allies. What does that look like in your goal pain? And we'll talk a little bit about some of the goals that we've set and surpassed. What does success look like? It's not just a perspective of we have this program, we're happy, but what is the engagement? Can you measure some numbers about the retention of your employees? You always need to get leadership buy-in, because it's hard to move without sometimes having that executive support. At Bank of America, we're very fortunate that the CEO, Brian Moynihan, is also our Chief Diversity Officer. He makes this, he preaches it, he talks about diversity and inclusion, that everyone, not just parts of my community, but everyone can bring their whole selves to work. What is the need for this ally program? Look at your current situation. How would your employees feel? Do they see themselves in maybe marketing, or if they're searching your intranet website, what happens if somebody who's transgender searches that word? Do you have support systems in place? What are your organization's specific needs? We're all parts of different industries, so it's important to tie them and be specific about what are you looking for. Data, we'll talk a little bit about that, how we can make it more personal. And then if you're a global corporation, how do you think about that global structure? So what are the challenges and how do you enable? So enablers, we're talking about how do you get those, what are the keys to those successes? So think about what's standing in your way. It could be culture. It could be a belief system at the company about who we are or what it means to be part of our community. What resources can you leverage? I think we're always concerned about budget, but who are the people making it happen? So really start to think about that, about your framework. And then let's go get into the next slide here. So really, this is what our journey looks like. And high level, I just wanted to bring in this slide to really show you're not going to be perfect. It is a journey. I'm sure companies, attending here or you're part of your organization will be all along the spectrum of having great policies and procedures and benefits, while others, do you have gender identity, gender expression, sexual orientation in your non-discrimination policies? Because those are very important. If you want your employees to feel like they belong, do they see themselves protected in your policies? So it's starting a proposal. For the Ally program, we really wanted to make sure that it's not just for the LGBTQ community, but how can we bring others along on the journey that they can help and support us? And the Rebecca, yep, perfect, thank you. And what we're talking about, we set a goal of attaining 25,000 allies. Of course, scaled to your corporation, we do have over 200,000 employees. But as we looked across that spectrum, that's the goal we set. We just didn't want to start an ally program and have people involved. We wanted to set a goal of how many. Formal education, which Lana is going to talk here a little bit about. Crystal Howard, who you see her lovely face on the screen, she doesn't have her camera sharing, but she and I lead a global LGBTQ training. So we think about it from a global perspective, make sure we're engaging other people across not just our own country, but intersectionality across the world. We have collateral. So as we move, as you become an ally, you do receive maybe some stickers, something you can post on your desk just to let people know that you're an ally. And then in 2016, we had a launch. We have a portal where you can go sign up to become an ally. All of these things that you see, I want you to know at the end, next year, we are going to have ally open houses. So I'm going to give you some contact information. So we're going to cover things a little bit lightly today, but we will do a deep dive. If you would like to connect with us, I'm going to give you that contact information so we can continue to share best practices. And also, we know that we're not perfect, and that's part of the journey, is understanding that it's a continued growth. And that's why you really see at that growth and engagement on the right side, we've attained our goal. So now what do we do? Now, how do we get past that? So we are going to be having a community that shares those best practices because we want to learn from you as well. Next slide, please, Rebecca. So when you're looking at some of those challenges, you're looking at the size of the company. How do we scale this to be sustainable and efficient? For us, we are a global country, and there's laws. There's in each country, can you even educate people about LGBTQ community? It's not a one-stop shop. When you're thinking about how do you expand, you're going to really need to rely on partners, legal, risk, our compliance partners to make sure that we're not doing something that endangers our reputation, but could also land our employee, put them in a situation that is not just uncomfortable, but dangerous. Technology. There's so much technology to leverage, but then how do you do that across the organization? And for many of you, you might think, man, I'm just one person in this HR department, or I have a group, but there's only a few of us pushing this. How are we going to ever, incorporate the technology into this platform? About budgeting. When you're looking at some of the dreams that you have and you want to obtain, even data with self-ID, it can be often difficult to make sure that people feel comfortable with self-IDing. What's going to happen with that data? Well, my company is not very supportive. So what if I do choose to be open and identify as somebody who's part of the LGBT community? What's going to happen to my career? And just the reach and engagement. Like, how do you make sure that you are getting to the community, the people that you need to touch, not just people in the LGBTQ community, but intersectional across the business? And so really what we did is what enabled us to make these is data. We were benchmarking, we were researching. So we might not have the data of truly understanding a population within our company, but you can benchmark across standards to really understand about how many people are in part of this population based on the population that I have in my company. Volunteers, that is probably one of the largest components. We call it our day job, which we have, and then we all have our day job. So we really have a structure set up with a volunteer basis. So all of this work, if you're thinking I've got to do this by myself, you really try to find people who are passionate about this topic, who are willing to, outside of their regular work and their regular work time, donate their time, their skills in helping develop technology, develop communication strategies, develop trainings. The volunteers are the most important. But we really want to make sure that because it is a volunteer, we're looking for people who have passion and commitment. Doesn't mean they need to be part of the LGBTQ community. It can be, again, allies, people outside that really look and seek to help us in our partnership. And then we have a really robust employee network. We'll talk a little bit about what our employee network looks like and really how we organize it in that structure. And then a culture. If you don't have a culture that is open, it is welcoming, it's really going to be hard to drive your allyship. So how do you drive that culture? And then sponsorship regarding executives. How do you get their buy-in? So you do have weight coming behind some of the communications. When it's important to your executives, people underneath them make it important to themselves if they really want to grow their career. Can I have the next slide, Rebecca? So really, this is where we are. Just I want to give you an overall snapshot. We went over 25,000 and now we have 32,000 people that are either out at work or allies. One of the things we'll be sharing in our open house is we do have a system. We have an engagement portal for our allies, has educational opportunities. You can just click to sign up. You move as you start as a bronze member. As you take action, you move up to silver, gold, and platinum. And that's when you go to silver. It's more of a game-like system where you do get the collateral. And really, we've found that that really has helped engage, not just in signing up to be an ally, but a continued journey to learn. And some of the things you have to have maybe a team or a group meeting to discuss, LGBTQ topics. So it really helps drive people along their own journey. But we also want to be very, very careful that you go at your own pace. So there's not a requirement to it. But really looking how we've expanded globally. Since we've set some of these goals, we have increased our membership by 41%. Out at work employees, that number has grown. You want to have that culture where people feel comfortable, and really looking to share these strategies with you and how to set these goals. And so again, I'll share that information at the end of this session. And don't forget, I see a question has come through, so please feel free to reach out and continue to ask questions. And Lana, would you just talk a little bit about some of the training sessions that we offer and the importance?
Hi, thanks, Scott. And thank you for sharing your story. It's always so powerful to hear. And I always inspire me and, just kind of feel how lucky I am with, when I transition with my friends and family. So I really feel for you, and story is always amazing. So let's go to this education overview. As you can see here, we do offer a lot of classes: Ally 101, Trans 101, Bi 101, and we also have training and panel. Like Scott said, we have a robust program that really, help other people understand us. We list here the objective for each of that session. I'll call out Transgender 101. The objective is awareness of transgender people and workplace challenges. guidance for interactions and respect. So all these facilitators, like Scott mentioned, are volunteer, including myself. You can see we always have someone identify as the topic. So for Transgender 101, we always have one transgender facilitator. We try to educate people by sharing our stories, since that's really what most people relate to. I love doing these classes and really sharing my experience and answering questions. I have a lot of people reach out to me after classes and tell me how much they've learned. And I've had other people, set up a call with me and discuss their personal stories and how to deal with it. So having these classes is like really rewarding for me. We also do a lot of panels. We make it as different topic that is relevant. We have different panelists sharing their stories. Some are enterprise level within the whole company, and some of the panels are like line of business level. Some of it we call courageous conversation. I love that this company gives me a platform to share my story. Like you've heard Scott's story and Jay's story and some of my story. I call this my non-part-time job, but that I love to do, on top of my other work. This is like, I'm so passionate about it. So I'm more than willing to volunteer and, take time to do these classes. Working for corporate America, I didn't realize that I can do this and educate people within and outside the company. So I'm just grateful to be part of this. And again, thank you everyone for listening to our story. So Scott has more slides to present, so I'll turn it over to you, Scott.
I'll move through these a little bit with a reminder that we're going to give you some information how to contact us so we can share some of these, because I do want people to ask questions. And, I know people posted, I love my story, and this is what we share to kind of make it more human for people. People didn't mean it. They don't realize the pain they're causing. It's really taught me to love and be more compassionate. Let's go to the next slide. Really want to point here is just kind of our program journey. It starts at the research, but we want to help you get through that phase. So, share some of our own learnings, gaining momentum by getting those goals, pulling in the key stakeholders. Who are the people that we need to make sure that we're including? Who's going to socialize it? Make sure that we have the right support from executive sponsorship. You'll see in there in line 4, that is so important that our goals are aligned to the vision of the company. Next slide, please. And then the continued, you have to get buy-in from our diversity and inclusion teams. We talk about a lot of intersectionality because we don't want to just preach to the choir and send our trainings and our newsletters only to people who are part of the ally and LGBTQ employee networks. We want to bring in people to share intersectional stories. So we work with our Black professional group, OLA, which is our the Latinx group as well. iGen, we're talking about intergenerational, military. So we can all realize that we're sharing the same kind of stories and we can connect the dots to really understand. So the team, volunteers, the business support, tech support. We were lucky enough to have our chief technology officer was really passionate about this. So building that website and the portal that we have, she dedicated some of the team. So resources, make sure you're getting the funding. We continue to improve by building ally videos that are accessible on demand. And then ultimately the launch and then continued growth. So once you launch a video or a product, making allies visible, then it's time to reset your goals and continue to grow. And we create toolkits that help make people successful, that provide additional education. Next slide, please. And then current operating model, just high level. Here we have our LGBTQ Pride organization. And we have all of these teams underneath that report up to our executive sponsors. So really we're centralizing our LGBTQ support. But we also have not just our LGBTQ network. Underneath that, we have ally program co-chairs. So people that are responsible for both the growth and the engagement. And then we make sure that we have senior leaders who are co-sponsors. And we also have an ambassador program to reach out. So really, we just have those different committees. And then when we do a global execution, we do have each region that has their own divisions. Next slide. And just some of the lessons learned, it does take time. So forgive yourself. Don't take everything away and think, okay, we have to build this all at once, but what are the key pieces that you can take away? What are the most important things that you want to focus in within your organization? And then really making sure that people aren't just signing up because that's what they're told to do. You want to make sure that the allies that you have are quality, people who really are truly caring and passionate about changing the culture within an organization. And then don't just assume that it's just going to be a small measure. I'm so shocked even watching the difference in how corporations are responding to transgender and gender diversity. People have reached out to our company wanting that framework, because the next generation, when you're talking about attracting talent, retaining talent, making sure that people are productive, the next generation, they love seeing that companies care about this. And the way that they identify, I mean, we're probably going to have to go away from some of the letters at some point, because it just continues to expand. So are you ready to capture the next generation of talent by making sure that your vision aligns with what the company they want to work for? And then go ahead and push those boundaries. Step out of your comfort zone. Make sure you're doing something challenging or unique. And then looking at those specific populations that you can do that. And then each letter of LGBT, we have LGBTQ, but the ally is so important. We could not be where we are today if other people did not stand with us in our journey. So, continue to grow that connectivity, and you'll continue to grow that engagement. Next slide. And there you'll see the phone number, the email address. Please email us at that email address and copy Elena Collins on that as well. And then you'll be able to get some additional information about what this entails, the timing of the first and next meeting, and we can walk through that together. So are there any questions in the chat? Crystal, Rebecca?
Hey, Scott, I think you answered the first question, which was about the tech platform. Was it internal or external? And the answer to that is it was internal. We have a robust technology team, and they built 2 versions of the platform, the initial launch and then something that had a lot more bells and whistles. Then the other question is, how can other companies attend our training? I think those 101 sessions was the question being asked.
So we really focused, and this is a great time with Out and Equal, helped us develop these trainings. And so we're fortunate enough to have a very robust training team. Brag on us a little bit here, Crystal and I. So not every corporation has a built out training or My Learning platform. So that's why we highlighted some of those corporations that could be incredible partners for you. Out and Equal is who we worked with to develop really some of our most, and the training is pretty incredible. We don't usually share those decks internally because it is co-branded, but if you need to, I'd encourage you to reach out to Out and Equal because they do work on that. And again, really regarding that ally portal, that's why it's so important to get buy-in, because some of your volunteers may be able to help, but if you're going to build something on a platform internally, there's so many firewalls and things to be built that usually can't be just done on a solely volunteer basis. That's why it's so important to get in executive leadership who is really truly committed to this framework, to continue to build and drive your organization towards a more inclusive organization. And it's not just because it's the right thing to do, but it's a matter of, when we're talking about a lot of people who are not able to be themselves in your corporation, not just part of our community, if they don't feel like they can bring their heritage or their beliefs, as long as they're respectful to your company, it's going to be difficult to retain top talent and think about just the money you'll spend continuously hiring and retraining and lose some very top talent people.
Hey there, I would also mention, the nonprofits that we had highlighted earlier. Like HRC has a great glossary of terms. There are many ready-made resources on the Out and Equal website, including, a pronouns guide, a guide to, being not inclusive for non-binary employees in the workplace. PFLAG has some fantastic plug and play materials. Like all of these nonprofits try to really equip corporations and individuals to help do their great work as allies. So, Identiversity is another resource that has, very small bites of content and information that is all vetted and easy for you to use. So there are lots of things that wouldn't necessitate you building your own training. You could use your employee stories and attach it to some ready-made content, and I think do the trick with less resources than what we have put into this over the course of 10 years or so. Another question came through about resources. Are they in Spanish or languages other than English?
Yes, and especially when we're talking about globally, it's something internally. A lot of these trainings are not, but we do offer some of the trainings in different languages, especially when we're talking about globally. But again, those are some of the things that we need to be focusing on. We're not a perfect company, and that's okay that we are not, and that's something we've been trying to develop. Not always easy. So it's a great question, and that's why we want different people part of the community to make sure that we can probably have lessons learned from what you're doing. And Crystal, I know that as a company, we want to continue to grow, and it's very important to us, seeing the inclusion across the corporation.
Those are all the questions.
Perfect. Well, I think that's perfect timing because we are at the top. 120, I think, is all we had. Feel free. I'm the only Scott Mielis on LinkedIn or Facebook. Feel free to reach out anytime. Our emails may be provided to you, but we're always happy to connect. If you want to learn more, please reach out to us with the email information provided, and we would love to connect with you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, everyone, for attending.
Thank you, everyone. Really enjoyed it.